Welcome to another video of Food Nourish Deep Dives, the videocast of foodnourish.net, where we explore topics like health, food, supplements, and alternative approaches to health and wellness. Today we're diving into a really big one, cholesterol. For decades, it's been painted as the #1 villain in heart disease. But what if I told you there's a mountain of data buried for years that tells a completely different story? Let's dig in and see what they didn't want us to find.
So let's just start with the question that kind of breaks the whole thing wide open. This one question really throws a wrench in about 50 years of medical advice. If high cholesterol is the bad guy, the direct cause of heart attacks, then how is it possible that the vast majority of people who have one don't even have high cholesterol?
Just let that number sink in, 75%. We're talking 3 out of every 4 people. And honestly, it gets even weirder. The research shows that about half of all heart attack patients have LDL levels under 100 milligrams per deciliter. The level that your doctor's chart calls optimal. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Okay, so how did we get so far down the wrong road? To figure that out, we've got to go back in time. This whole story really starts with one hugely influential and, as we're about to see, seriously flawed study that basically set the stage for all the dietary advice that followed.
It all kicked off with a guy named Ancel Keys and his famous 7 countries study. Back in 1970, this thing looked like a slam dunk. It seemed to prove a very simple idea. Eat more saturated fat, get more heart disease. Simple. The only problem? He had data from 23 countries, but he only published the results from the 7 that actually fit his theory. He just sort of left out places like France, where they were eating tons of butter and cheese, but had really low rates of heart disease. And just like that, fat became public enemy #1.
And this just shows you how long the truth can stay hidden. At the exact same time Key's theory was becoming gospel in 1970, another huge, well-controlled experiment was going on that completely contradicted him. But look at this timeline. The full inconvenient results of that experiment, the Minnesota Coronary Experiment, they weren't published until 2016. The data literally sat in boxes in a basement for 40 years.
And here's the bombshell that was in that buried data. Researchers had over 9,000 people replace saturated fats like butter with corn oil. And hey, it worked. Their cholesterol dropped by about 14%, just like the theory said it would. But the people didn't get healthier. They died faster. For every 30-point drop in their cholesterol, their risk of death actually went up by 22%. It was a total spectacular failure of the diet heart hypothesis.
So if the science was this shaky right from the beginning, how did the cholesterol-lowering drug industry get so massive? Well, it has a lot to do with a really clever marketing trick, using statistics to make these drugs look way more effective than they actually are. This right here is the magic trick. You'll always see the big, flashy number. That's relative risk. The headline screams, "This drug reduces heart attacks by 36%. And that sounds incredible. But the reality is the absolute risk. So let's say in a study, 3% of people on a placebo have a heart attack, and only 2% on the drug do. The real benefit is just 1%. But if you take that 1% benefit and divide it by the original 3% risk, you can claim a 36% relative reduction. It's not wrong, mathematically, but it's for sure misleading.
Here's another way to look at the real-world impact. It's called the number needed to treat, or NNT. It basically asks how many people have to take this pill every single day for years for just one person to actually get the promised benefit. Well, for statins, if you haven't already had a heart attack, that number is somewhere between 60 and 217. That means up to 216 people take the drug, pay for it, deal with the side effects, and get absolutely no benefit whatsoever.
Now let's just put the risks right next to the rewards. So on one hand, you've got maybe a 1 in 217 chance of avoiding a heart attack that wouldn't have killed you anyway. But on the other hand, the data shows you have about a 1 in 21 chance of getting muscle damage and a 1 in 204 chance of developing diabetes from the drug itself. When you see it laid out like that, the risk-reward math starts to look, well, not so great.
Okay, before we dive into what the new science says actually causes heart disease, I just want to take a second to mention that if you're on your own wellness journey, you should definitely check out foodnourish.net/deals. We've put together all the best deals on supplements and wellness products from amazing brands like Perpetual Life, iHerb, Source Naturals, Nootropics Depot, and BioOptimizers. It's all in one place. The link is right down in the description.
All right, so if we've been blaming the wrong thing for half a century, what are the real culprits behind heart disease? The modern way of thinking about this goes way beyond that simple idea of your arteries being like clogged pipes.
This is the big paradigm shift. Atherosclerosis isn't like grease building up in your kitchen drain. It's an active, biological process. It's an immune response. It all starts with an injury to the super delicate lining of your artery. Damage that can be caused by things like high blood sugar, smoking, or even chronic stress. Once that injury happens, your body, being amazing, sends in a repair crew to patch things up. And this is the absolute best analogy for understanding cholesterol's true role. Cholesterol is part of that repair crew. It shows up at the scene of the injury to help fix the damaged artery wall. So blaming cholesterol for the plaque buildup is like walking up to a house fire, seeing a bunch of firefighters, and blaming them for starting it. They're a response to the problem, not the cause of it.
So what's actually starting the fire? What's causing that initial injury that kicks off this whole chain reaction? Well, according to the research we're looking at, these are the main villains. Insulin resistance, mostly from high-sugar diets. Those small, dense LDL particles that can get damaged or oxidized, low-grade chronic inflammation throughout the body, and an overabundance of inflammatory omega-6 seed oils. Yeah, the exact same kind they used in that Minnesota experiment.
So where do statins fit in all this? Well, they work by blocking a very specific pathway in your body, the one that makes cholesterol. And that works. It lowers the number. The problem is that same pathway makes a bunch of other really important stuff, especially a molecule called CoQ10. You can think of CoQ10 like the spark plug for your cells. It's absolutely vital for creating energy, especially in high-demand organs like your heart, muscles, and brain. So when you block that pathway and deplete your CoQ10, what do you get? Well, you get the most common statin side effects: muscle pain, fatigue, and brain fog.
Okay, so if watching our total cholesterol isn't the answer, what should we be looking at? Let's give you a whole new toolkit, a set of modern tests that give you a much more accurate picture of your actual risk. Let's run through this new toolkit. Instead of just total cholesterol, you should look at your triglyceride to HDL ratio. It's a fantastic marker for insulin resistance. You want to check your hs-CRP, which measures hidden inflammation in your body. You can measure your ApoB, which literally counts the number of potentially troublemaking particles. You should track your HbA1c, which shows your average blood sugar over the last few months. But really, the game changer is the CAC score. It's a quick scan that actually looks inside your arteries and measures the amount of plaque. It doesn't measure a risk factor, it measures the actual disease itself.
The whole point of this is to empower you to take back control. So don't just nod and accept a prescription. Go into your next doctor's appointment armed with these questions. Ask for the real numbers. What's my absolute risk reduction? What's the NNT for someone like me? And then ask for the tests that matter. Can we get a CAC score to see if there's even a problem to begin with? Can we test for inflammation and blood sugar issues?
And that really leaves us with this final big question to think about. For so long, the entire focus has been on lowering a number on a lab report, often using powerful drugs with some pretty serious side effects. But maybe, just maybe, our focus should have been on addressing the root causes all along: the inflammation, the metabolic problems, the lifestyle stuff that's actually starting the fire in the first place. If you want to dive even deeper into the studies and sources we talked about today, make sure you check out the resource article. We've linked it for you in the description below. If you got some value out of this deep dive, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps us grow the channel so we can keep making these. And of course, make sure you subscribe so you never miss another deep dive. Thanks so much for watching.